Welcome to the BuyBox Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Hi, I'm James Thompson, one of the hosts of the BuyBox Experts podcast. I'm a partner with BuyBox Experts and the former business head of the Selling on Amazon team at Amazon, as well as the first account manager for the Fulfillment by Amazon program. I'm the co-author of a couple of books on Amazon, including the recent book, Controlling Your Brand in the Age of Amazon. Today's episode is brought to you by BuyBox Experts. BuyBox Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. When you hire BuyBox Experts, you receive the strategy optimization and marketing performance to succeed on Amazon. We also support investors with due diligence services. Go to buyboxexperts.com to learn more. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to send a big shout out to the team at Getida, a global leader in Amazon FBA auditing and reimbursements. Getida analyzes your Amazon data, reconciles your FBA inventory, and files claims for reimbursements on your behalf. To learn more, check out getida.com. Our guest today is Vivek Rastogi, Director of ECommerce at Colgate-Palmolive, the firm that brings us household brands like Colgate, Speedstick, Irish Spring, Soft Soap, Tom's of Maine, and many more. Vivek has had numerous leadership roles over the past 15 years, including being responsible for the Amazon channel for more than 3 years. Vivek, welcome, and thank you for joining us today on the BuyBox Experts podcast.
Hi, James. Happy to be here, and thanks for the opportunity to have a discussion with you today. Looking forward to it.
So your company is a large, multinational, multi-brand portfolio of organizations. With you in charge of the Amazon channel relationship, give our listeners an overview of where Amazon fits in with your company's overall distribution and branding efforts.
Oh, I think, if you really look at it, Colgate has a people-first approach. And essentially what that means is, we want to be where the people are and people are shopping. And as you know, today people are moving online for various reasons. Obviously, pandemic had a role to play, but in general, that's something that we've been seeing over the last few years. And to that extent, Amazon or e-commerce in general definitely fits into the overall Colgate-Palmolive strategy, because we want to be, as I said, we want to be there where people are shopping and, looking for our products. So that not only makes Amazon a very an important channel for today, but it's also a strategic channel for us going forward. So it definitely is here to stay, is what we believe. E-commerce is only going to grow. We've possibly seen only the tip of the iceberg right now. And therefore, we believe that Amazon or e-commerce, and as more customers get serious about e-commerce journey, this is a channel that's only going to grow further and further going forward.
I've had the opportunity to work with large brand organizations that started in traditional brick and mortar and then started to get interested in e-commerce. As you think about your company as it starts to embrace e-commerce, there are very distinct characteristics of what Amazon presents in terms of challenges, but also opportunities. If I think about some of the other challenges that you might be facing, you certainly sell a lot of liquids. You sell products that may be heavier than your typical 1 or 2 pound item that most Amazon products might represent. How do you make the economics of heavy liquid products work? How do you make that work in an e-commerce space like Amazon?
Oh, that is a big challenge. And again, this is not specific to Colgate-Palmolive, that I believe the entire vendor community is facing this. And the reason, you got to understand what's driving that, why suddenly a heavy liquid is a problem today. And it simply boils down to what I call the cost weight equation, because if you really look at the e-commerce model and the supply chain of e-commerce, the biggest difference is the shipping cost. And shipping cost is expensive, which makes the e-commerce model inherently more expensive. And that economics, therefore, is not easy to work, because you're talking about shipping a heavy liquid at possibly not such a premium price point. And, somebody needs to take that cost, because at the end of the day, the consumers like e-commerce. They are going towards e-commerce, and they whether it's the convenience of it or whatever be the reason, that's where they want to shop. And brands and retailers need to follow. The liquids obviously pose a specific challenge, or maybe even a bigger challenge, because of the packaging issues as well. The leakages is a problem because remember, all of these or most of these products were inherently built to be sitting on the shelf,
Yes. Yes.
not to go through and survive the e-commerce transit. And that's a challenge for brands. And a lot of brands are working on it. You'd see some really unique, innovative solutions coming to the market, whether it's the packaging solution and so on and so forth. And so it's a unique challenge that we're facing, but I think there's a lot of work happening in the packaging industry in general to make this work. Just to give you an example, because I talked about the e-commerce supply chain, and the delivery mechanism versus the brick and mortar. I believe, in a traditional brick and mortar retailer, the entire product touches maybe about 6-7 hands, or those are the kind of touch points between getting to the consumer household, which is when the consumer is coming to the store and picking it up. On an Amazon, for example, I believe I read somewhere it's 17 touch points before the product actually gets to the consumer's household. So you're talking about a packaging solution which is developed to just handle possibly 6-7 hands
Yes.
now
Yes.
needs to go through a 17-18 kind of a touch point, and therefore these packagings don't survive, and you'd see a lot of leakages and all of that kind of stuff. So that's something brands are working on today to ensure that they do work on e-commerce as well, which is not the consideration, I would say, even 5-6 years back.
So you also sell a number of products that, as a consumer, I might go into a store and I might buy one bar of soap.
Mm-hmm.
And while you can sell multi-packs, I'm curious, how do you make the economics work for items that otherwise would have been sold for under $10?
Multipacks has been one of the solutions that most companies have been trying with, because at the end of the day, the categories and the products that we are talking about are daily essential products. So, there is a high loyalty value, there is a high repeat value to these items. So consumers don't mind buying a multi-pack of the same item, say a piece of toothpaste or a bar of soap, which they know they just wouldn't need any which way. But the reason you see a lot of multi-packs today on e-commerce channels is because just to make that economics work. So I'll give you another example. A typical shipping cost for a bar soap or whichever way, it would be bare minimum of $5-6 just to ship it. Now, to have that, a $2 bar soap having a shipping cost of $5 just doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So you get into a multi-pack, which is put 5-6 of those bar soaps together, at least get to a price point of a $10-12, so that at least the $4-5 or $3-4 shipping costs can be absorbed. And that's just really the simple maths of it, really. So, and that is why you see increasingly, even for categories like daily personal care products, you would see, typically it's the $10 price point, which is what everyone's trying to strive for, where every unit that you want to sell on an online channel or specifically on Amazon should ideally be $10 above, and that's what the Amazon contacts will also tell you, and that's really what multi-pack helps you get to that point.
You talked a few minutes ago about managing content on PDPs that may not necessarily be products that you're selling yourself, but somebody else is listing it. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you think of this process of going out and finding all of these other listings that may not be vendor central listings that you're selling against, but finding these listings, making sure that the content is consistent with your brand equity, protecting your brand on these listings. How does your company think that through? This is a question we get asked a lot on, I have 100 listings in my catalog, but there's 150 listings on Amazon. How do I stay on top of what's going on out there? Because a big risk for a big brand is seeing its brand get eroded away by who knows who seller creating all this content.
Yeah, and there is no solution to that, or there's no magic wand to do that. There are tools and technology out there in the market. There are third-party vendors who actually focus on this aspect, saying which helps the brand to identify what might be misrepresenting or misleading consumers with regards to your brand. So you obviously kind of monitor some of those, you use those tools to identify and then take corrective actions if you can. Or, so there is no efficient solution to something like this. It's just about how paranoid you are to kind of keep your brand and equity intact, and that's really what it is. But yes, but it's also an evolving space. So I think Amazon's learning this, and I'm sure Amazon's getting a lot of feedback from other brands as well. So they have actually upped their capabilities for brand owners to be able to control the content a little more than what it used to be in the past. So brand registry is a program that Amazon gives all the brand owners, where you have a little more control. You still don't have 100% control, but you still have a lot more control in terms of how you can control your brand. Uh, the cases that you raise in brand registry, for example, are, I believe, given a higher amount of priority within the Amazon system to ensure that they can fix it. And as I said, the other aspect is just go to some of these third-party vendors and their technology companies out there who's kind of monitoring this for you and actually flagging you in case they see anything that we need. We might need attention.
How do you personally manage this? Do you have a team that works on some of these different problems, or do you find yourself having to find magic time to go solve some of these day-to-day issues?
A combination of both, to be honest. Yes, we do. I have a team who kind of looking into it. We use brand registry a lot. We try to leverage brand registry as much as possible. So that's our number one, or the preferred way of doing it. But in terms of how do we identify and monitor, these things and these listings, we do have some third-party partners that we work with who help us through their tools, kind of flag us every day, every morning, for example. Okay, here is the listing that we might want to look at, and things like that.
When I think about challenges that big national brands face when they first start to look at the Amazon channel, a lot of them are surprised just by how many private label sellers, brands they've never heard of, that have grown up on Amazon, that are busy attacking, grabbing share, eating your lunch. How do you think about all these competitors where, when I think about many of your brands, there are patents that protect the manufacturing capabilities, but from a consumer perspective, a bar of soap may be a bar of soap. It may not be Irish Spring, but it's a bar of soap. And there's lots of other beautiful brands of soap out there. How do you think about all these new competitors that a week ago didn't exist, but now there they are on Amazon doing PPC, trying to grab share from you?
Well, that's the new reality that we are living in, isn't it? Right? It is an open marketplace model. The barriers of what we used to call the barriers to entry into launching these products have definitely come down. You can have your Seller Central account listed for $40 a month, I believe, and you can start selling whatever you want. And that is the reality of it. And I think for brands like us, it is about not trying to challenge that new reality, but really embracing it. To be honest, private labels have always been there. Yes, but the extent of it and the intensity of it, and how many brands and competitors that we are looking at today have changed certainly. And I always give this example where in a traditional big box retailer, if you go to and look at the toothpaste aisle, you might have possibly 120, 150 SKUs at a time, maybe across 30, 40 brands at best. But if you look at Amazon today, I believe in the last count, I have about 5,000 SKUs of toothpaste being sold. And I believe, I counted about 300 different brands. But, they're all there. They're all legitimate. It's all selling possibly good products as well. But I think for us, brand equity is still very, holds true. Yes, a bar soap is a bar soap, but the reason people prefer an Irish Spring to something else, there's a lot of work which has gone behind building that brand over so many years, decades, and centuries in some cases. And I think that is here to stay. And I go back to the people first concept that I spoke about right in the beginning, where at the end of the day, people prefer those brands. People have an emotional connect with those brands. And it's the same people who used to be in those brick and mortar stores are now coming online, at least to a large extent. And these are the same people who are buying and searching for the same brand. So brand equity definitely takes you, has a role to play even in this highly competitive set, despite so many brands being there. but it's equally a challenge for us as well, because it's not that we can just say, oh, we have the brand and we have the brand equity and we don't need to do anything. Of course we need to adapt and change and compete in this new environment, and you'd see brands doing a lot of that today, whether it's about tweaking your communication strategy, how you connect with these new shoppers who are online, how you give them what you want, which might be a different driver from what they were looking for in a brick and mortar store. So obviously you'll have to adapt your strategy, your communication strategy, your marketing strategy, your go-to-market strategy to cater to the new mindsets, the new expectations, the new demands of these consumers. But at the end of the day, they still love their brands and they're still looking for those brands. And I think that definitely is here to stay.
Okay, Vivek, let's shift gears. I want to talk about what makes the Amazon supply chain so different for your firm when you compare it to other channels that you might be selling into. Certainly, there are extra complexities, extra requirements Amazon puts on sellers that are selling through Amazon. Take me through what those issues are for you and how you've addressed those.
Well, I always say, I think supply chain is the most critical and possibly the most complicated part when it comes to doing business with Amazon. And the part of the reason is that, if you look at it from the other side, I genuinely believe that a large part of the success that Amazon's got today is because of their supply chain and how they managed to actually get the supply chain right to be able to deliver and give that kind of experience to their customers, right to the final mile delivery and things like that. But to be able to achieve that, Amazon's expectation of brands is also extremely high and very different. And that's what poses the challenge for brands like us. Now, again, like any other function in any other business, the supply chain for a typical CPG industry or most of the industries were built to cater to a sustainable demand, a very regular pattern, and to deliver to a brick and mortar retailer. Not anymore. Amazon or e-commerce channels are growing extremely fast. So gone are those days where you can really forecast down to the level of the accuracy that the systems are built in. So you used to take pride in saying, I'm 99.9% accurate in my forecasting. Today, you suddenly, the supply chain needs to deal with 60% forecasting if you're lucky, right? Or forecasting accuracy if you're lucky. Now, how do you deal with that? Your systems and processes are not built to, look at that kind of, swings and spikes and, all of that stuff. That's one part of it. The second thing with Amazon's very, very particular is the way you're delivering those products to them. So are you delivering them on time? In which packaging, format, labeling? And they're paranoid and extremely tough on you if you do not follow their guidelines. And the reason, again, from an Amazon perspective, is very simple. You can imagine with the size of Amazon, for example, they are receiving millions and millions of products, possibly every minute or hour. And for them to be able to do that, everything has to be what they call an auto receiving process. They want limited manual intervention. Everything has to be automated. And suddenly your one case with the wrong label can actually stop that. And that's a lot of dollars lost and time lost at Amazon end as well. And they penalize the vendors for it, which they call chargebacks. Now, those things can add up pretty quickly. And therefore, our supply chain teams need to really embrace their guidelines, their requirements, and ensure that we are executing that to the T. Otherwise, it's just a leak on a lot of your dollars, which just goes away because of all the chargebacks and the penalties that Amazon.
Are there any particular policy changes that Amazon made with supply chain requirements that caused your firm to have to adjust significantly?
Not really, nothing specifically. Obviously, Amazon keeps coming up, they keep revising the policies as the things might be. So new charges or, increase or decrease and all of that stuff. But I think that has never been the trigger. The trigger essentially has been that how particular and meticulous Amazon is about their receiving process. Other retailers obviously have always been, because again, it's a big part of their efficiency driving. But I think Amazon's right up there, and they do penalize you heavily as for the reasons I mentioned. So I think for us it was about looking inwards, not only to avoid these chargebacks, to be honest, but also how can we become more efficient from our own cost perspective and our supply chain processes perspective to cater to e-commerce. Now, we spoke about multi-packs, for examples, and those are the kind of things, because you're creating new packs for an online channel or on Amazon. All of those things create complexity at our end. So how do you simplify for those? How do you ensure that we can deal with the forecasting challenge that everyone has, because we know out of stock on any online business is actually double, if not more, costly than running out of stock on a brick and mortar store. So for us, it's been a process of continuous improvement. How do we learn? How do we embrace the changes? How do we get more technology to work for us, and ensure that from our side also we are as efficient as possible in delivering to Amazon and other online customers, which is very, very different from how typically a supply chain process would work for a typical brick and mortar retailer as well.
Vivek, in the 15 years that I've worked with brands on Amazon, I'm constantly surprised how national or even regional brands expect to be able to start selling on Amazon and be able to convert existing offline brand equity and brand share that they have into immediate Amazon marketplace share. And yet, as we talked earlier, there are often hundreds of new competitors they've never seen that are already there on Amazon. Tell me about how your firm is positioned to fight the good fight on Amazon, to protect and to leverage your decades of brand equity that you've already built in non-e-commerce channels.
I think we kind of covered this a little bit earlier as well. And I think for me, the starting point is, the brand equity is here to stay. There is a reason why people like you and love your brand, and that's here to stay. It is about us adapting how do you translate that brand equity and speak maybe a different language or maybe a different way of communicating to these consumers who are not looking for the same brand online. And that poses a different set of challenges, where how do you translate that brand equity to make this work and convert better online. So now that's where the uniqueness and the nuances start coming up. So you're talking about how do you ensure that you're leveraging the search behavior that consumers have, or you're leveraging the social listening tools that we have now in the marketplace, and how do you keep the pulse of what people are talking about or what's trending, and how do you then translate your obviously you've got to be true to your brand, but how do you translate that and pick that brand imagery and convert it into a manner which connects better to the online consumers. Now, to answer your question, can all that happen overnight, and can you help grow that brand, online from day one? Possibly not. It takes time. Your communication needs to be different. Your go-to-market needs to be different, as I mentioned earlier. But I think it's still a very, very important matrix to actually have brand equity behind you, because people are still looking for familiar brands. They're something, especially for our categories, for something that they've been used to using. It's just that they don't want to drive to a store today, and they just want to sit on their mobile phones and just purchase the same item.
So Vivek, you've been involved with the Amazon channel for many years now. What tips and tricks would you offer a director of e-commerce who's jumping into the Amazon channel for the first time?
Well, I have learned a lot. There's so many things that you can learn on this business, and and I still believe it's a very, very evolving space. But in my experience, if I can think of the top things that I have learned the most, and I think would is something that every account manager or everybody who handles business in Amazon needs to definitely look into, is two things. One, I think the most unique thing that I find about Amazon is their philosophy of self-service, or what they call hands of the wheel approach. Now that's a very, very different way of approaching business than how a traditional company has been used to dealing with other brick and mortar retailers. It has always been about GVPs and engagement and connect and meetings and discussions. Amazon doesn't want to do any of that. They want you to be self-service. They want you to figure it out yourself, and they genuinely want to run the business hands of you. And I think the better and the more and the earlier any account manager can embrace that and understand that and appreciate that, the less frustrated you would be dealing with Amazon.
So where do I get this support, this help? How did you build this support around you to learn what to do and the best roads to take when you're running into problems?
It's not been easy. Let me tell you that. I've had my own learning curve, but I think you obviously seek support. So you have your Amazon contacts, and you do seek support. I'm not saying that I still have my weekly meetings with them. I still talk to them very frequently. But it's about your ask. So, for example, one of the things that I drive my team to ensure at Amazon, saying, do not go to Amazon or seek help till the time you have tried at least 3 things yourself to fix it.
So give me the example. Give me an example of what you mean.
So before I would send an email to my contact, or I would pick up the phone and speak to someone at Amazon to help me with something, I would raise a ticket. I would trying to go into the vendor center and see if I can fix something myself in a creative manner, because that's how their systems are built. Right? Because at the end of the day, most of the time, if you're going to just hear the response saying, I don't know what's happening, please raise a ticket and I'll let you know what happened. Might as well do it first before you actually do that. It's just a way of,
yes.
What you call customer relationship. And they actually appreciate that, they like that, because that's how that entire organizational skeleton is built on. So, it's those kind of things. It's kind of difficult for me to say that there is a formula like this and, you can just, you can follow this. But as I said, I always challenge my team saying, have you tried A, B, and C things? Have you tried 3 different routes before you want to pick up the phone and speak to someone? Which, by the way, can include raising a case to Amazon or chasing them on something, or, and just understand how, the so-called algorithm works. Right? Or observe them, saying, okay, if this is not working out, what are the hypotheses? Can we fix this ourselves? And some of this is hit and try, some of this is just trial and error. But I think in the long run, with experience and observation, you realize that approach is far more effective than just sending an email and just picking up the phone and just raising it or escalating it from the get-go, simply because the system is not meant to react that way. And the more you try, the more frustrated the account manager is only going to become, and just downhill from there. So that's one learning. The other learning is just internal, again, for account managers, how much you can create internal awareness. As I said, this is a new channel. This is still work in progress. It's tip of the iceberg. And it challenges a lot of the established systems and processes that we have traditionally built over so many years. So I think the account managers, because they're the closest to this business, they're closest to this evolution, the more they can talk now, the more they can drive that awareness. And to be honest, the more they can challenge internally now, I think it'll be good for the organizations in the years to come.
In many organizations, e-commerce and traditional retail sales are 2 very distinct groups that don't necessarily see eye to eye. With you and your team being the group that sees what's happening on Amazon first, there are inevitably some challenges that you need to bring back to the organization and say, we need to evolve the way we're thinking about things. We need to adapt so that we can be more successful on Amazon. Take me through some of the types of issues that create a lot of noise or a lot of thrash within your organization that you have to bring back and say, ladies and gentlemen, we need to change, or we need to become more astute in the way that we go to the Amazon marketplace.
Oh, that's such an active conversation for today. And just to pick up how you started your question, I think gone are the days where you can actually run e-commerce separately and a retail or a brick and mortar channel separately, because I'm sure omni channels all over the place right now. Everyone's talking about it, and it is true, because it's not an Amazon only in the market, right? There are other people, especially after the COVID situation, starting last year, people have realized that that's where people are going to shop for. And a lot of things, so a lot of retailers also realizing that, and now I know a lot of big retailers are now coming back to brands like us and pushing us, saying, what is your omni-channel strategy? Don't talk to me about your e-commerce strategy. Talk to me about your omni-channel strategy. So one, those are not two separate businesses. So, but are we there yet? Of course not. It's just a journey that we've started. In terms of, a lot of those internal things, that there are lots actually, but in a good way, where, things are being challenged, things are being reviewed, things are being adapted. But I think, just to give you an example of, packaging is very close to my heart, because I think that plays a huge role in how successful or not successful you are on e-commerce. When we spoke about the heavy liquids in the beginning, a lot of, so my push to the organization today is you need to come up with omni-channel packaging. So gone are the days where you're talking about packaging which is only sitting on the shelf, or gone are the days where we used to, in fact, I used to ask for e-commerce packaging. I said, not anymore. I need to ensure that packaging or that solution or that bottle works equally on the shelf as much as it is on your online business, and that includes design, that includes packaging, that includes material, and so on and so forth. And sometimes those are not easy decisions, because the company might have to put in a lot of capital investments now, or change a huge put in a lot of money up front to be able to be there when e-commerce is still a smaller part of your overall revenue. And sometimes that just boils down to am I solving for something for a long term, or am I solving something for now? And those are difficult commercial discussions and decisions, right? Do you want to put X $1 million today to be able to reap the benefits maybe 2 years or 3 years down the road, and not immediately? But these are the conversations that we are having right now, and I think every company should have.
So Vivek, let me ask you in conclusion here, if I'm a new brand and I'm getting the idea that I need to be on Amazon, you talked about some tips and tricks for bigger brands getting onto Amazon, but based on all of your experience to date with this channel, how can you make your organization a better organization by being at least partially focused on this omni-channel idea and building a brand that will satisfy all channels?
Oh, I think it's a paramount discussion today, and it's not about having a partial focus. I think every organization needs to be fully focused on omnichannel, because again, it's a very simple fact that the people's journey on purchasing any product is not linear anymore. I'm sure you've heard this, right? It's all over the place. So
yep.
I'm in a brick and mortar store or a retailer, and searching for prices on the phone, or looking at that at a completely different retailer, or vice versa, right? I'm searching online, buying offline, and that kind of stuff. And therefore, every product and every offering that you have to offer today has to cater to both the retailer, like in the physical shelf, as well as online, because that's how people are shopping. And again, just goes back and again to, like, you got to follow what people are doing, and you got to follow wherever they are. So and gone are those days where you one of the solutions in the early days used to be, I'll have a different product offering online, and I'll have a different product offering offline.
Yes.
It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work from an efficiency perspective, because you're adding complexity to your own business, and you're adding cost to your own business. It was okay then when at least the e-commerce or the online part of the business was extremely small, but not anymore. So now you have to come up with a more scalable solution, which therefore has to be something that works across these different channels. So it has to be the topmost priority for every brand, big or small.
Vivek, I want to thank you for joining us today. For our listeners interested in learning more about Colgate-Palmolive, please check out Colgate-Palmolive.com, and be sure to join us again next time on the BuyBox Experts podcast.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.